So I've been cooking for a really long time, and my cooking career really started off with me going to different people's house to make foods for them. That's where my interest and passion first sparked. And this time around, I thought I wanted to go over to Jonathan's house and make food for him and his family. So I would be cooking for about 4 people that day, and I was going to serve a 4-course meal. So I had to start all the prep right away. But first, I had to have this silly looking GoPro strap on my bandana, because yeah, that's the only way I was getting this footage. But so I went ahead and started making the dough for the bread I was gonna make, and I don't have a lemon zester, so I had to go ahead and peel and fine mince the lemon hide myself, which is really tough. Then I also had to mix these greens with this onion and the lamb meat because it had to marinate for about 2 hours while I made everything else. So I was actually starting off with these preserved lemons really quick because I was gonna make an African dish for Jonathan's uncle and aunts, or I think they're his grandparents, I forget, I'm so sorry, John. And these are actually really tender and squishy, just be careful not to lose too much juice. Then I had to go ahead and sear off all the chicken for the soup I was going to make them. This soup is known as tagine, it comes from North Africa, I believe. Once the chicken was seared for color, I'm actually going to go ahead and start making the actual soup, which starts with a lot, and I mean a lot of white onions. Like, I was crying like a baby after this, and everyone else in the house could feel the singing as well. So you're actually going to cook down these onions until they're just barely translucent before you add all your different spices, and you can kind of get a hint of what spices I'm using here. Especially since it's from the North African region, you're typically using a lot of Mediterranean spices. And the goal is to essentially thoroughly cook all the onions, reintroduce all your other ingredients, and go ahead and add the chicken in with the chicken stock once the stock is finished. So that's what I'm doing here, and this is going to go into the oven. So while that works in the oven, I'm going to start on the prep for all the actual meal. So I cubed up all this eggplant, zucchini, and some tomatoes as well, and you want to actually saute these separately because eggplant and zucchini specifically cook at very different temperatures. Even though you want to keep everything about the same size for presentation, there's some onions here and some green bell peppers along with the tomato as well, and this is all going to go together for later. So once they're all cooked properly, you're actually not cooking all the way, you're part cooking it before putting it in a tray that's going to go in the oven as well for, I believe, 1.5 hours, something of the sort, with whatever spices and herbs that you so please. Next, I'm actually going over here with some mayonnaise and some anchovy paste. No, it's not fish poop, as well as some garlic paste because I didn't have minced garlic and I didn't want to spend the time to do it, to make this nice Caesar dressing. That's the consistency you want. I have no idea why I'm spinning the camera this way, and here is all my chopped romaine for later. Now I'm going to take some of that lemon zest, or a lot of it, that I made earlier with some other, I believe, cilantro, some more Indian or Mediterranean spices, excuse me, and you're actually going to be blending this up for a sauce that you're going to want to make later on for the meal as well. Once that's finished, I'm actually going to start rolling my dough, and no, I don't have a rolling pin, and neither does Jonathan, so on a floured bench, I covered whatever cylindrical shaped thing I could with some plastic wrap, and I did my best to roll this out into a semi-uniform circular kind of shape, and this is going to be the bread that I'm going to serve along with the first course, and it's actually going to be a pita bread. So went ahead and put down a tray in the oven, and it does get a little bit sticky, so you might want to wet your tool just a tad bit to avoid the stickiness. And it's gonna sit in there for just about 5 to 10 minutes off the top of my head, and you want them evenly spaced out so you're not gonna actually overcrowd your oven too much while these things bake. Once they're done, you're gonna see that they have a decent amount of inflation. They were completely flat when they started, and here is the ratatouille that I was working on earlier. Very rustic, very simple. So as I mentioned to most of you guys in the Discord, and if you're not a member of the Discord, go ahead and join now because it's free. I'll leave a link in the comments section. I actually had problems with my SD card being corrupted, so I lost a lot of the footage that I captured for this day, and Jonathan didn't take any pictures of the meal either. So I'm gonna actually use some photos of the different dishes that I made throughout culinary school that I ended up serving at Jonathan's house to him and his family. First up, for the first course, the amuse-bouche, if you will, I actually ended up doing a potato salad with spicy mayonnaise, and it was a paprika-based mayonnaise, or a mayonnaise with paprika, I should say, served on lettuce cups that I made out of some of the leftover romaine, if you will. Since mayonnaise is actually made with lemon, I added just an additional bit of lemon to my overall mixture so that you're not only getting a very light tingle of spice from the paprika, but you're also overall getting a nice tart flavor in order to help entice the appetite, because the entire purpose of an amuse-bouche, which is a first course meal that's supposed to be 1 to 2 bites big, is to actually stimulate the appetite to get you ready for the rest of the food that's going to be coming out. So that's what I went ahead and did with this. Then alongside this, and also as a precursor while people were waiting, I served them the pita breads, which the pita breads are actually breads that can open up like this because they're filled with nothing but the hot air, so you can go ahead and stuff whatever you want in there if you'd like, or you can just eat them by themselves. They have just a nice warm gluten-y taste with maybe a tiny hint of salt depending on how much salt you incorporated into your dough mixture. After this, I took that dressing that I made and all the chopped romaine, and I actually took baguette at the grocery store, and using some oregano and some other herbs that I had purchased and a little bit of olive oil, I actually made my own homemade croutons for my own Caesar salad made from scratch, topped with just a little bit of the Parmesan cheese as a garnish. And I promise you guys, these are really old photos of the first time I made them. I was very rushed. Just please trust me when I say it looked a lot better than this. I've grown as a cook. With potato salad being an American style dish, and with Caesar salad being a Mexican dish, we were actually gonna go over to France for a second for the ratatouille. There's really not much to explain here. It's just a medley of vegetables that simmers together. However, like I mentioned earlier, you do cook them separately at first so that everything can be of a similar texture. One thing won't be more overcooked or undercooked than the other vegetable with it, and you want everything to work in harmony. It has a really fresh juiciness to it, the freshness stemming from the different herbs that you use, and maybe just a tiny bit of pepperiness to it as well. Overall, it's nice and tart, it can be nice and plump, it could be a little bit sweet, even really depends on what you decide to incorporate. Then we transferred from France over to North Africa for kofta, and kofta could be actually made not just from lamb but from beef as well. I believe typically it's made from a mixture of the two, and it could be served in a number of different ways depending on what country you're from. I actually opted for the meatballs because that's what I preferred personally, and I prefer to have the meatballs at like something around medium, temperature wise and whatnot. And you actually serve it with that sauce that we made earlier. I believe it's pronounced chermoula, and chermoula sauce is kind of like green and salsa. If anyone was still hungry later on that night, or if somebody wanted a quick meal the next day, they still had the tagine, which was an onion soup with really nice tender chicken legs, and yeah, his grandparents really tore into that. They really loved that. In this photo, I know that I have some olives in there. I personally am not a fan of olives, and I know a lot of people that I personally know aren't a huge fan of olives either, so I just decided to leave that up, but it's totally up to you. And this is what I made for Jonathan and everybody else. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Turn your appearance to a disappearance. I fuck with nothing but gangsters, nothing but hustler niggas. Sound off, sound off.